All right. So what is JavaScript? First of all, does anyone here have experience with JavaScript?
Me, sir. Little bit.
Carla, where'd you learn it?
Back in college.
Okay, let's see. You think you remember anything from it?
Maybe just a little bit.
Okay, we'll see. Um, so JavaScript is a high-level interpreted programming language. A high level means a lot of the details are kind of buried and you don't have to worry about them. Like, for example, in language like Java, which you might confuse with JavaScript if you don't know about programming. Java and JavaScript are two different languages. Um, you could say they're similar, but then you could say all programming languages are similar because they all have sort of the same basic functions or abilities. You can create variables, you can create functions, you can do loops. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of that's why in a lot of business environments, the programming language you choose or the libraries that you choose that um, because people can develop whole libraries using programming languages that are basically supposed to make tasks easier, like things that you would normally do, like for example, having a server that you, like an endpoint you can go to, like a URL, and then get some information. So they all have like their ways of doing these things, and so it becomes a choice eventually. And a lot of companies will use JavaScript. JavaScript is probably the easiest one to learn, although some might say Python, but I don't think so. I think JavaScript is easier because you could actually use it with web pages. So JavaScript is designed for the World Wide Web. It was made specifically to run in your browser, although now you could run it to do backend stuff, which is the things that you don't actually see on a web page, but tasks maybe serving images, or I don't know, keeping track of a database, sending data back and forth. Um, but a lot of the stuff we'll do is just manipulating your HTML, and maybe we'll do um, some of those little animations that you might have seen in my website. Actually, I made a bunch of games. Well, not a bunch, like two games with JavaScript. We won't make a whole game, but we could just learn how to create a little basic animation, and then from that, maybe you could figure out how to do other things. So, as one of the core technologies of the World Wide Web, along with HTML and CSS, it enables you to create dynamically updating content, control multimedia, animate images, and more. Requires a program that can read it and an environment. Your environment for JavaScript is going to be your browser. So if you inspect your code, if you right click and do an inspect, bring up this DevTools panel. If you click on console, this is actually a place where you could write JavaScript. For example, if you want, before we get any further, why don't you guys right click on your browser and do inspect and then find console. Doesn't matter which browser, if I use Edge, you should still have that. We do an inspect, click console, we have that there. So I'll just do it in Firefox. But go ahead and type, um, try alert parentheses, and then inside the parentheses put a couple quotation marks. Doesn't matter if it's single or double quotes. And just type hello world, just like that. And a semicolon. So a semicolon is how you end a command. Although if you leave it out, it's probably gonna still work. But try that, press enter, and you should get a little pop-up that says hello world, and then you can click OK. You guys try it. So inspect, console, alert, parentheses, hello again. So this is a function. Alert is a built-in function. So you could call it a method. Function, method, same thing. Usually method just means a function of an object. In this case, the object would be the document object model, or the DOM, and alert is a built-in function that lets you alert a message. So most functions, um, there's a lot of built-in functions, but you'll learn how to create your own functions. This is your function argument. So a lot of functions sometimes require some input. Like, what do you want to do? You could do an alert without an argument, but you'll just get an empty box. So having an alert with an argument, in this case, this anytime you have single quotes or double quotes, this is called a string. String is a type of data, but if you didn't have quotes around it and you just wrote hello, that would work too, but only if you had saved hello as certain if you saved, maybe you wrote greetings, I am learning Java script. So if I write this and I want the alert to say this, and I'm passing in hello, this would work if I wrote hello, or let hello equal, cut that out, paste that in there. So in this case, this doesn't have quotes around it because it's a variable, and variables can store data like strings. This is a string. In JavaScript, we can do this with single or double quotes. Some other programming languages, there is a difference between single and double quotes. In JavaScript, for the most part, I don't think there's any difference. But we can do this, and we'll still get the alert to work. It'll say, greetings, I am learning JavaScript. Cool. You guys need more time to try that out, or you want me to move on? Okay, I'll move on. So it requires a program that can read it and an environment. Um, the program that can read it, I guess, would be the JavaScript, the engine. I forgot what it's called. Well, every browser has its own JavaScript engine, I think. Google's JavaScript engine is called V8. I think Edge also uses V8, or maybe not. It's Chakra. What does Firefox use? Spider Monkey. Anyways, they all have their own program or engine, but the environment is your browser. It's standardized by ECMA International, so they make recommendations for updates. It has been around since the mid 1990s and can be used client side or server side. Client side means you can use it in your browser, you can use it in your HTML. Server side means you make it do things like update something in the database or check if a password matches or something. So who should learn it? Web developers, front end, back end, or full stack. Front end means you work mostly on manipulating the web page. Um, Back end means you're working on the more boring stuff. I guess it's more fun for some people. And then full stack just means you do both. Mobile app developers can use JavaScript. Desktop app developers can use it. Game developers. Why would you want to learn it? Average salary is 78,000. I would say that's more low end. I don't know. That's like starting is gonna be about 70. I probably wrote this like 5 years ago, so it went up a little maybe. It's high demand. Top five programming languages. Easy to learn, easy to begin. There's a large community for support, and it can be fun. So where can you write it? You could use plain text editors like Notepad, just like HTML and CSS. You could write JavaScript in a Notepad. You could use VS Code or Brackets or Dreamweaver or Atom or Eclipse or PHP Storm. Browser developer tools console can also be used, and that's what I showed you here. When you right click, inspect, click on console, this is your browser developer tools console. Some basic rules: extra white spaces are ignored outside of quotation marks, sort of like HTML and CSS. No, it doesn't matter if you write something with 10 spaces or you press return and skip 10 lines or one line. But in something like Python, that does matter. So not all. The main difference between different programming languages, I guess you could say, is the syntax or the way you write it. JavaScript will look familiar to you if you use the CSS because it uses the open and close curly brackets. Um, and we have different words we can use when we're writing, when we're creating these variables, like you saw earlier. I wrote let hello equals greetings something something. In this case, let fruit equal apple. We could do var fruit equals apple, or um, what was the other one? Const fruit equals apple. We'll go over the differences between that, but let fruit equal banana, let's say. Let's say fruit 1 equal banana. Now if I type fruit 1, it says banana. What was the difference here? It says extra white spaces are ignored. Oh yeah, if I put let bunch of space, fruit bunch of space, equal bunch of space, it doesn't matter. That's all I'm saying here. You could also use var fruit2 equals apple. If I type fruit, I put fruit instead of fruit. Anyways, fruit, it says apple, fruit 1, banana, fruit 2, reference error, fruit 2 is not defined. We never made a fruit 2. Let's do const fruit 2 equals pear. Okay, fruit 2 now gives us pear. So I used three different words to create these: let, var, and const. Right now, just think of let and var as interchangeable, pretty much the same. There is a slight difference, but we'll go over that later when we understand JavaScript a little bit more. Without knowing too much about JavaScript, you could still know the difference between const and these two. The difference between const and these two is I've already created a fruit1, right? If I type fruit1, it's banana. Since I already created, I can say fruit1 equals what's another fruit? Say orange. So now fruit1 instead of banana, remember I said let fruit1 equal banana. Now I changed the definition of fruit1. I said okay, it's orange now. I didn't have to use let because I already have defined it one time. Although you could, if you wanted to, I think it would still let you. Fruit1 equals strawberry. Oh no, you can't. You can't read declaration of let fruit1. You're not allowed to. Maybe you could with var. Remember, we might be seeing a difference between let and var right now. If I try var fruit equals um, bear, let's do grape. This one doesn't give an error. There's one difference between let and var. If you declare, this is called declaring a variable because you're using the let keyword. You're declaring let fruit1 equal banana. And then you could change the definition of it with fruit1 equals orange, but you can't do let fruit1 equals strawberry because then you'll get this error saying you're redeclaring it. You're not allowed to do that. But apparently with the var keyword, it doesn't care. If you declared it with var fruit equals apple, you can do var fruit equals grape and it won't give you the error. And it'll change the definition of fruit to grape. So there's one difference between those two. But const is the one that's different because you cannot redeclare the value of something. So a constant just means it's constantly the same value. You can't change it. It's always going to be whatever you declared it as. So in this case, where is it? Const fruit2 equals pear. Fruit2 is always going to be pear. I can't reassign it. I can't say fruit2 equals man, why is it so hard to think of fruits? Is a cucumber is a vegetable? Kiwi. See, it says type error, invalid assignment to constant fruit2. So it's since it's a constant, we can't change it like we did with var and let. So I changed fruit1 equals orange. That worked fine. I changed fruit to grape. That worked okay. But can't change fruit2 because when I declared it as a constant. Okay, so the constants, variables. The variables are like one of the most basic things you should learn. And in JavaScript, we could declare them with let, var, or const. Originally, it was just var, but const and let were kind of introduced more recently. And remember ECMA International, I think in 1995 or I might be wrong, no, 2015? Yeah, more recently, 2015 or 2016, ECMA International standardized let and const. So before that, it was just var. There's reasons why they included those two new ones, but now I just mostly use let. The only reason you would want to use const is just to make sure the value of something never changes, so you declare it with const. just to, I don't know, prevent errors. Okay. Instructions end with a semicolon. It's not super strict, so if you forget to put a semicolon at the end of the line, you might not have any errors, but it's good practice to include it. Other programming languages will be more strict about that. Might as well get used to it. Order usually matters. Okay, so JavaScript is read from top to bottom and left to right. So things that come before will exist before the things that you declared after them. So that means saying things like, let me see if fruit are still available. Yeah, fruit's still there even though I cleared this. By the way, I clicked the trash can to clear everything, but it's still saved in the memory of my browser console. So it's still there, unless I refresh the page. And now if I type fruit, it doesn't know what I'm talking about because I refreshed the page. But anyways, you can test how order usually matters. I say usually because there's some cases where I'll go over where it doesn't matter. Well, it still matters, but not really. So let's say I declare, I want to say fruit 1, but fruit 1 is not defined. Down here I say let fruit 1 equal apple. If I press enter, by the way, if you want to go to the next line without executing this, you have to press shift enter or shift return. Otherwise it's like basically running it. So that's why I'm pressing shift enter to do this. If you press just enter, it's gonna run the command. But I'm declaring fruit 1 after I'm calling fruit 1. So here I'm calling fruit 1, but here I'm declaring it. Since I'm declaring it after I called it, I'm going to get an error. But if I did it the other way around, let me refresh. If I put this after, then it's fine. Okay, because we're creating this basically, then we're using it. So you can't use it before you created it, and it's going to be counted from top to bottom, left to right. Only place it, well, the only place I could think of where that order doesn't matter is when you declare a function with the function keyword. Functions are sets of commands that you can run. So in a function, you could do things like declare variables, like let color equal blue. But usually you write some sort of command in there. Like if I call this function, gotta give it a name, like say hello. And then we'll talk about function arguments a little bit later, but let's just do a simple function that says hello. So this function, you can see it's kind of like CSS because you have this opening and closing curly bracket. Before that, you have the name of the function. Before that, you have the function keyword. There's different ways to write functions, but this is like the original way to do it. And the reason why I'm showing you a function right now is because this is the case where the order doesn't matter, because you could actually use say hello. You can call it, the way you call this function is by writing the name of the function and then putting these parentheses. Um, so in this case, it doesn't matter. Still says hello world, even though most cases it will matter. So most cases you'll have to declare the function and then call it. But when you declare a function with the function keyword, just some stuff happens in the background where, like, the before it starts running the command, it goes through, it looks for functions, and then memorizes what the function definition is, and then it starts reading the commands like this from top to bottom. It's called hoisting. I think that's the word for it. But yeah, so this is like the only case I can think of where the order wouldn't matter when you're declaring a function using the function keyword. We'll talk more about functions later, but um, we'll try some very simple stuff first, so don't be overwhelmed. Okay, JavaScript can be written inside an HTML file or saved as a separate JavaScript file. If placed inside an HTML file, it must be within a script element inside the body or head. Pretty much anywhere in the HTML document. If placed in a separate JavaScript file, you must insert it into the page through the src attribute of a script element. Um, so I'll refresh your memory on HTML, CSS in a little bit, but you should definitely know at least some basic HTML and CSS before you start this class, because I'll be assuming you know it. That's so we won't have time to obviously reteach HTML and CSS while we're also learning JavaScript. So hopefully you guys have a little bit of a understanding of HTML and CSS. Um, Now here's an example: placing your script tag directly inside the HTML file. You have your script, and kind of like with CSS, instead of a style element with CSS written inside, you have a script element with JavaScript written inside. You could put it in the head or you could put it in the body. Honestly, you could put it anywhere within the HTML. I mean, the only thing inside the HTML is going to be the head and the body anyway, so yeah. Um, I don't know if you could probably put it between the head and the body too. But point is, you're supposed to usually put it at the end of the document, like the last thing inside, because HTML is also read from top to bottom. And usually you want to load your HTML document, like load all the pictures and the text before your computer starts thinking about the code inside, right? It'll help make your website appear to be loading quicker if everything appears before it starts trying to calculate the script. Um, and then you could put it in a separate file and just link to it with script tag source equals. Okay, and variables are what we've been talking about. They're containers which hold reusable data. It's a basic unit of storage in a program, declared with var, let, or const, and followed by a name. So I just talked about these. Var was like the original way to write variables. Then we introduced let and const in 2015 or 2016. Um, and the main difference here is var and let can be changed after you declare them. Const cannot be changed. It's always going to be Joe. You assign values with the equal sign. That's important to know. I was using the equal sign to assign these values. Double equal is a comparison. So if I said let let num1 equal 5, let num2 equal 6. If I say num1 equal num2, you get false because we're comparing. Is num1 equal to num2? So double equal is comparison. There's also triple equal. That's for like a more strict comparison because you might have num, let's change num1 to 5 but with quotes. And then num2, let's change it to 5 without quotes. We compare num1 equal to num2 with double equal, we get true. But if you compare them with the triple equal, we get false because one of them has quotes. It's a string technically, and this one's a number. Right? You have different data types. A string, anything with quotes, is going to be different than a number. Okay, variable names can contain only the following letters, A through Z, capital or small, whole numbers. Okay, no points, underscores, and dollar signs. Cannot begin with numbers, so it can't be one num. It's got to be num1. And cannot contain spaces, so it can't be num space 1. They're case sensitive, so num1 equals 5. Let's say we could do another one. Say let num or num1 equal 3. Okay, num1 is 3 and num1 is 5. The one with the lowercase is 5. The one with the capital N is 3. So they are case sensitive. Some words are reserved and cannot be used as names for variables. And there's a list of the reserved words that you can't use as a name of a variable because it does something. Right? You can't say var, right? Var is reserved. Var let won't work. Var const won't work because those three words we know do something. Also, var function won't work because, again, function is another keyword. Here's a bunch of other keywords that you can't use as a name. All right, any questions so far? We'll get to practice in a second. I'm assuming you guys have Visual Studio Code. Everyone's got VS Code. We'll be using that in this class mainly to write our JavaScript. So if you don't have VS Code, don't forget to install that before we try anything. Here's the link. Just again, if you don't have it, download it. I'm assuming you have it because a lot of you are from my previous HTML and CSS class. I made you install VS Code. And some of you are from maybe a class a few months back, web page development and what was it? I think website planning and production. If you were in that class, you used VS Code. So most people should have it. But if you don't, go ahead and install it. Does anyone not have it? Anyone not have VS Code? Okay, good. I'm assuming everyone already has it. By the way, okay, this audio is working. Good, good, good. Alright, so data types. I already mentioned strings. String is a data type, anything in quotes. There's two categories of data types. Oh, and variables can contain any data type in JavaScript, which is cool. Like a num2 can be 5, but then you can change num to banana. Doesn't matter. Or you could change it to false or true, different data type. But in something like Java, you cannot do that. Once, well, first of all, the words that you use to declare variables in different programming languages will be different. It won't be let or constant var. It'll be a little bit different. You'll maybe have to declare the type. So you'd have to say string my string equals banana, or number num, or it wouldn't be num, it would be int type of. So not only do you have different data types like strings and numbers, you also have different types of numbers like integers and longs and floating point numbers. So yeah, that's why this is a higher level programming language. You don't have to worry about all that. Anyways, primitives are basic data and contain values. So numbers, strings, true or false, those are primitives. There's actually six primitive data types: string, number, boolean, which is true or false, null, which is just means nothing, undefined, which means you never defined it, and symbol, which um, symbol's kind of uh, rarely used. I don't know. I never used symbol, but I think symbol is supposed to represent like a unique value. Just want like a unique random number or something. That would be symbol. I'm gotta double check. I forgot what symbol was. Symbol in JavaScript. Yeah, it returns a primitive guaranteed to be unique. Yeah, it's just a unique value it'll give you. Everything else is a type of object. Okay, so you have the basic stuff, and then you have more complex objects like arrays, which is a list of things, a function, which is a set of instructions. You have the date object, the math object, and regular expressions. Primitives contain data, objects refer to data. So the way your computer stores them is a little bit different too. Primitives with the same value are equal, but objects with the same value are different. Objects can refer to other objects, and the data type of a variable can change. A string in JavaScript is a series of characters. So any series of characters with quotes around it is a string. You could also have spaces. You can have a whole paragraph, have a whole book in quotes. It'll be a string. They're wrapped in single or double quotes. in I don't know why I keep bringing up Java. We're not learning Java, but just so you know, in Java, if you use single quotes instead of double quotes, it wouldn't be a string. It would be a character. Okay. In Java, a single character and a series of characters are going to be different data types. They're not the same. That's why in Java it would matter. But in JavaScript, since it's higher level, doesn't matter. String and character, same thing. Quotes inside a string can't match the surrounding string unless you use the backslash escape character. So and sometimes you're writing something like, oh, there's something under the bed. That's fine, but you can't have it with single quotes on the outside because the apostrophe here in the word theirs is also a single quote. So you'd have a problem here. The problem is now it's going to think you're closing this, and so it's like that's your string, and then this is a variable s, there's a variable something, there's a variable called under, there's a variable called the, and the bed, and then random quote by itself over here. So that's a problem. Unless you put a little backslash before your single quote, then that's fine. So this is called like the escape character. It basically tells JavaScript if you put this within a string, it'll tell JavaScript that this needs to be escaped. Don't count this as an actual end to my quote. It's just the string character. Strings can be combined or concatenated with a plus sign. So you could connect two strings together, putting a plus sign between them. So if you had let A equals refrig and let B equal aerator, if you did let C equal A plus B, then console logging is basically writing something in the console. I don't know if you could console log in the console. Usually write your console logs in your HTML file in your VS Code, but here I'm actually in the console where the console log would appear, so might might give an error unless they change something. Console log, hello. Oh, it works. You could console log while you're in the console, and that's what console log does. It just writes something in your console like it just did here. So console logging C, if you did C equals A plus B and you had this, you would get refrigerator connected together with no space between them. So if you want a space, you gotta add a space at the end of your string. I mean, you could try it. Let A equal Ali. Let B equal Gator. Okay, A is Ali, B is Gator, C is undefined. It's autocorrecting to cache, but if we write C equals A plus B, and we write C, we get alligator. Also notice when I do type things like let me refresh the page and clear all previous variables I declared. Say let color 1 equal blue. Notice when I press enter or I execute this, it says undefined. Other times it'll say something else, like if I did the console, well, let's do like an alert. This will also say undefined. So functions can return values. Usually you want to return something with the function, but if you're not returning anything and you run the function like this in the console, you're going to see undefined because yeah, it's not returning anything. But if you had a function that does return something, like what would be a function that returns something? How about prompt? What is 5 plus 2? Okay, a prompt is a little window that asks you something. You can type in something. So if I put 7 in there and they say okay, this is a function that does return something. Returned whatever I typed into it. So most functions, I mean, some will either say undefined or some will return whatever value they're designed to return. So that's what this undefined means if you're curious about why I keep saying that, or sometimes it says something else after I type this in. That's what that is. Okay, so like I said, JavaScript is a higher level language, so it only has one standard data type for all numbers. Doesn't matter if it's a positive, negative number or number with bunch of decimal points. Big int was recently introduced for very large numbers. I guess if you have like a huge number, lots of digits, JavaScript might not calculate it correctly. So big int was introduced for really large numbers. Numbers are not wrapped in quotes like strings. Numbers wrapped in quotes will become strings. Numbers can be accurately calculated within the range of negative 2 to the power of 53 minus 1 to 2 to the power of 53 minus 1. So positive and negative 2 to the power of 53 minus 1. It's a huge number. 2 to the power of 53. Oh, yeah. What is that? 9 million, billion, trillion. What's after trillion? That's how big that number is. But then again, I did 2 to the power of 53, so technically maybe this is inaccurate because it's not 2 to the power of 53 minus 1, it's a little bit more than that. So it might be inaccurate, 2 to the power of 53 being that value. So 2 to the power of 52, that should work. You could bet that's more accurate than this is. Actually, I don't know how the calculator program in my computer works. Maybe it goes higher than that. Anyways, by default, JavaScript displays numbers as base 10 decimals. You can also display them in hexadecimal, octal, and binary. Arithmetic operators can be used to do math with numbers, so you could do 5 plus 5. And it's going to return 10. 5 times 5 with the asterisk. If you want to do division, it's 25 over 5 with the forward slash. You can also get the remainder if you do, let's say, 26%. So use the percent symbol, divide by 5, you get the remainder. Since 5 goes into 26 5 times, but you get 25, so 1 is left over from that. 26 minus 25 is 1, so if you want a remainder, you do percent. You could increment and decrement. So increase by 1 or decrease by 1 if you do plus plus. So 5 plus plus. I guess you can't do it that way. Let num1 equal 5. And then you could say num1 plus plus. Okay, now if I check num1, it's 6. If I do num1 plus plus again, it's going to first return the old value, but if I type it again, it'll give you the new value, 7. And if I do num minus minus, we'll uncut. Oh, did I refer? What happened? Why did it say? Oh, because I did num instead of num1. Num1 minus minus shows 7 at first, but if I type num1 again, you see 6. You could do, if you want to increase by more than 1, you could say, let me see if num1, okay, num1 is still 6, but if we do num1 and we want to add 2 to it instead of 1, instead of doing plus plus, you could do plus equals 2, and now num1 is 8. Plus equals, minus equals, times equals, divided by equals, and percentage will calculate and assign values. A Boolean can contain only one of two possible values, true or false. So Booleans just means it's true or false, on or off. Useful when you only need two possible values, yes or no, on or off, true or false. Variables with values are true, variables without values are false. 0 is also false. Comparing with equal equal or equal equal will return a Boolean. Null and undefined are similar but not exactly the same. Null means nil, empty, or non-existent. When a variable is declared but not given a value, JavaScript automatically assigns the undefined value. So you could say like let fruit and not really give it a value. You just say let fruit. You never put the equal something. If I say fruit, it says undefined. If I say vegetable or veggie, I get an error because I never declared it. With fruit, even though I didn't give it a value, at least I declared it with let. So one gives you an error, the other one doesn't. Null is never automatically assigned by JavaScript, so if something is null and you assigned it, it has to be assigned by the programmer. Symbol is a data type, is fairly new, introduced in ES6. That's ECMAScript 2015, I think. And this is the one I mentioned earlier. It's just a unique value, the one I had to Google earlier. Every symbol value returned from symbol is unique. Symbol value may be used as an identifier for object properties. This is the data type's only purpose. Basically gives you a random unique value. Unlike other primitives, it must be declared with symbol. I don't know how you would check the value. Let's see. Let my symbol equal symbol my symbol. Just says symbol. Doesn't actually show you the value of it. I don't know. Anyways, you're never going to use that, so just forget about it. All non-primitives are objects. They are assigned with var, let, or const, the same as primitives, but their values can be numerous with other variables. Variables in objects are called properties. Each property is stored as a key value pair. The key is the variable name. The key's value is separated by a colon. Before we get into key value pairs and objects, though, why don't we practice understanding the primitives first, numbers and string. Well, let's look at string first and see why it's useful. Okay, it'll be like your first little assignment. I want you guys to think of a short story with a person's name and maybe a, a character or an object um, that's repeated. Like I don't know, like maybe there's a character named Peter, and in your like short paragraph of a story, you say there's a guy named Peter. Peter was walking through the woods, and a bear stumbled upon Peter. Then you could, since you're reusing the name Peter, maybe you could save it as a variable called name1. So like let character1 equal Peter. And then maybe the animal that you came across, let animal1 equal bear. So then you could write a story like let story equal there once was a guy named, and then instead of writing Peter, you would want to concatenate. Remember we talked about concatenation or connecting strings. Where did I write that? Yeah, so here we talk about concatenation. So refrig plus orator. So C equals A plus B, you get refrigerator. So we do, um, you could write there once was a guy named, and then you could put a space there because you're probably going to want a space between named and the actual name. So you put a space here. You do plus char1 or character1. So if I type story now and we look at the story, it says there once was a guy named Peter. We got to add more to the story. So we could say story plus equals. We're going to add on to it. And we want a space after Peter and maybe a period. So let's put a string here and a period and a space. Okay, and then we could say plus again, and then character1 again. Say plus again. So the story is going to end at there once was a guy named Peter. Then we're going to add a period and a space to that with the story plus equals period and a space. Then to the period and the space, we're going to add plus character1 again. So we're just going to add the name Peter plus, I'm going to say Peter was walking through the woods one day and he stumbled across a, and I'm going to put a space after a, space, and say plus plus bear or animal1, and then another plus, and then an exclamation point. Okay, what did I put in there accidentally? Story plus equals that, and then story plus equals so there once was a guy named Peter space. Now we're doing story plus equals Peter was walking through the woods. So we have a string literal in there. It says, what does that mean? Oh, I guess because I'm doing plus equals and then I'm doing plus after. I guess you're not allowed to do that. So story plus equals character1. Actually, no, that's not the problem. Should be able to do story plus equals character one plus dot dot dot. Maybe if we put parentheses around it, sometimes you need to put parentheses to clarify things. So we could do character one plus all that plus that. But oh, wait, anima one. That's why. Put animal. I misspelled animal one. Kept writing anima one instead of animal one. That's probably the problem. Let's get rid of the parentheses and just do it this way. Oops, string literal. Anyways, this is a really annoying way to do it using the plus for concatenation. We're gonna look at a much easier way to do this instead of doing plus and then a space every time, which can get super confusing like you see here. There's a better way to do it, introduced in ECMAScript 5 or 6 in 2015. Um, if I probably cut this part and just do that part, it should work. And then we just need to add the rest of it to story by doing story plus equals. So there once was a guy named Peter. We didn't add the Peter was walking through the woods. And we messed it up a little bit. And plus equals animal one. That is where we're narrowing it down. We're narrowing down where the problem was, and it's here. I forgot to put plus here. That was the original problem. Let's refresh it real quick. Let's see if it'll work if I did everything correct the first time. Let's say let story equal that. Okay. Character 1 is not defined. Since I cleared it, we need to define character 1 again. Pressing up in your console, the up arrow will show previous commands that you had. So I'm just pressing up till I get to here. Let character 1, let animal 1. We're declaring those. And I'll press up again till we get to story. Okay, if we look at story, it's back to there once was a guy named Peter. Press up again till we get the whole story. Story plus equals character 1 plus blah blah blah. And here's where we forgot to put a plus. So let's just add that. See if that works. Yeah, so now we get there once was a guy named Peter. Forgot the period. Peter was walking through the woods one day and he stumbled across a bear. It'll be less confusing. It'll be easier to write if we do this in VS Code. But I still want you guys to try it with the plus sign concatenation this way. Then I'll show you a much better way to do it. But let's do this in VS Code so you can work on this after the break. Maybe ask questions. So I'm opening VS Code. We're gonna wanna create a new folder for this, I think. JavaScript. Or I'll just call it WST154. Create a new folder in here called assignment 1. We're talking about this. I don't know. It came with the computer. I didn't add that. Looks like Pringles, but don't think so. Um, okay, so create a new folder called WST154 and a folder in there called assignment 1. I'm just going to open that assignment 1 folder here. And let's create a new file. And we'll call it index.html. Um, okay, who here does not know JavaScript? Sorry, not JavaScript. Who does not know HTML? Because I'm gonna type in an exclamation and then I'm gonna press tab, and that just automatically gives me this boilerplate or your basic HTML that you need for every HTML file. So hopefully you guys know about that already. And we have our HTML document, we have our doc type, we have our HTML element. Inside that, we have the head and the body. And nothing on this page right now. So if I open this with live server, which also live server is a plugin. If you're just installing VS Code, you're gonna want to install some extensions, and the one I used just now is called live server. Looks like this. You just search for it here in the extensions and then install it. But live server just lets me right click my HTML file and say open with live server, and it just opens it in my browser. So here's our um, HTML document right now. It's empty, nothing going on. If you want to write JavaScript in it, you need a script tag. So just in the body somewhere, type in script, opening and closing tags, and you can try try console.log hello world. You're not gonna see anything here because we're writing hello world to the console. That means if you inspect this and click on console, you should see hello world right there. Got a bunch of exclamation points, and save that. See it updated. Yeah, you could. There's gonna be a lot of these little red error things popping up every now and then, but you could ignore most of those. Like I don't know what that's for. It says 404. Why is it saying 404 not found for something? I have no idea, but you could ignore that. This works. Anyways, just do that, and let's take a break. And then after the break, you guys can let me know if you're having trouble with any of this. I'll slow down, go back, give you guys a chance to examine the notes that I shared with you. What I do with it. Anyways, I put it in Google Classroom. I also stuck it in the chat here. I'll put it there again so you guys can review it. Just if you're gonna review it right now, you don't need to go too far. Uh, just go up to string. Okay, let's take a break. Okay, so we're trying out Fitzgerald's story here, and I have this page open, and because this script is in this HTML file, any variables we declared here should be available when I go to the console. So if I'm in the console and there's nothing here, if I type farmer, because I have this let farmer declared here, we get fits. And if I type story, see if this actually worked. It says, yep, there was once a farmer named Fitz, and in his farm he has some chicken, hiya hiya hoo, and Fitz, and in Fitz farm he has some horse, hiya. Okay, well it works. I would put some capital and maybe a period instead of a cut. It's just some grammar stuff, but it works. But it's really annoying to write, right? I mean, all these pluses and spaces, and like it's really easy to forget where to put the space and all that. So let me show you much better way to do this. Instead of using the plus sign to concatenate, there's something called string literals introduced in ECMAScript 5. I don't know if I have notes on it though. Functions, conditional, blah blah blah. No, it's not in the notes. I wonder why I didn't include it in the notes. Anyways, let me show you a better way to write it. Okay, so instead of using the plus sign to concatenate, let me write a story real quick. Okay, let story equal. Well, why don't I let ChatGPT or what's it called? GitHub Copilot write it for me. Okay, it came up with a random story about a bike ride. That story equal last weekend I took literally the most beautiful bike ride of my life. The route is called the plus 56 mile. Okay, we'll replace 56 mile loop with a variable. Photos of the magnificent, and I will replace scenery with something. The trip was so much fun. I can't wait to go on another bike ride. I don't like this story. Let's see if he'll come up with. Let's say let. Um, I wonder if I type let scary story equal. All right, there we go. Let's get a scary story. I just give me the full story. Control I to continue. Control I. Oh, there's the whole story. Oh, that's a long story. Wait, is this repeating? Oh, that's a weird. Okay, the story doesn't make any sense. I don't know if you guys are reading it. It seems to be repeating I screamed and woke up again, but then I saw a door was open and there was muddy footprints on the floor, and I heard creaking. I felt cold fear in my chest. Screamed and woke up again, but then I saw the door was open and there was footprints, and I heard a creaking. Felt cold fear. Screamed and woke up like a weird AI story just repeats. Okay, it's not gonna work. I thought it would write me a nice story. And I need this to go away. How do we make that go away? This little window. Don't know what I did to make it pop up, but okay, I guess that did the trick. Alright, I'm gonna write a simple story about um that story equals.
Professor, sorry. I just went to the kitchen really quick. How is you were having like these options, like automatic options. I'm like trying to follow up the same, but it's no
Oh,
for me.
no, yeah, that's Copilot. You probably don't have it. So Copilot is a subscription thing. Where is it? Copilot. I just have it because I got it from work. GitHub Copilot is the AI just does things for you. So I have it enabled, but if you want it, you could install GitHub Copilot. But then it's gonna ask you to log in and sign up to GitHub, and then I think you have to pay for it too. So it's not free. That's why I haven't recommended it. But it's really cool. I could um I could tell it to write me a story, and it will. And like it gives me all these suggestions. So I was being lazy, so instead of writing the story myself, I was gonna let Copilot do it, but it was giving me nonsense, so we're not gonna do that. But the rest of the stuff, I mean, exclamation tab, you should be able to do that, and add your script tag. And just let's write a story. Let's story equals there once was a man named George. George lived in the 100-acre woods. He, no, George lived in a cabin in the 100-acre woods. One day, while um, going out to collect firewood, George came across a bear. The bear was startled by George. Let me turn on word wrap view. Word wrap. There we go. Okay, there we go. So we have a couple things here we can replace. George, of course, and maybe bear. What else can we replace? What's repeated here a lot? There once was a man named George who lived in a cabin. One day he wanted to collect. George came. Whatever, just George and bear. So if I did it this way with the concatenation with the plus sign, it would be really annoying. If I said let um, name equal George, let animal equal bear. So if we're going to replace this with the variable, everywhere where it says George, I would have to um, end that string with a quote, and then instead of George, write name, and then do a plus, and then open the quote again to continue. Do a plus before that too, actually. But there once was a man named George, and I have to put plus and a name plus, and then do another plus here, plus name again because it says George there, plus another quote, single quote, or just the opening quote. Lived in a cabin one day, not two words. There's George again. We close the string and do a plus again. Another name and another plus, and then continue. Came across a, close the quote there, plus animal, plus another opening quote, got bear again, so close that, plus animal, plus quote, plus name, plus the rest of the thing, delete that, close and open, plus, plus, name. Okay, let's see if that looks okay. And we look in the console. Actually, let me do something else. Instead of writing this in the console, I'm gonna say document dot body dot inner HTML equals story, and we'll just write it here. There once was a man named George. Okay, we forgot to put a space between George and lived. Man's named George plus that, and then yeah, I forgot to put up a space right there. So let's do that. Cabin in the 100-acre woods. One day while going to collect firewood, George came across a bear. The bear was startled by George and ran away. George was relieved and went back to his cabin. The end. So what's cool about this is we could say, instead of let name equal George, we could say let name equal prompt. What's your name? Okay, and I'll put David. Say okay. Now it says there once was a man named David. David lived in a cabin. Blah blah blah. We could also add another prompt. Let's say let animal equal prompt. What is your favorite animal? I don't know, tiger. That's okay. Oh wait, I put actually okay. There once was a man named Tiger. Tiger lived in a cabin. Let me refresh that. What is your name? David. What is your favorite animal? Tiger. Okay, there once was a man named David. They lived in a cabin. Went to collect firewood. Came across a tiger. Tiger was startled. Ran away. So you can see how variables are reusable, and then you can also assign them values. This is what makes variables useful. But writing it like this is kind of annoying. It's very confusing having to put plus before the variable and after the variable continue the string. So when you want to write long strings with variables within it, instead of doing it this way, we could do it a different way. I'm gonna comment this out, and if you want to comment out JavaScript, you could put a double forward slash in front of it, or a single forward slash and a star, and a star and a forward slash to end the comment. Easiest way though is just highlight what you want to comment out and do controller command forward slash. That will comment it out for you. By the way, I have word wrap on. View word wrap. Technically, this is all one line. That's why I just put a double forward slash. But if you had multiple, like if I press enter here, you need to put a forward slash in front of that line too. So just saying this so you don't get confused. The double forward slash only comments out a single line. It just looked like multiple lines because I had word wrap turned on and it's just wrapping the text. So it's actually forward slash in front of every line. But since it's wrapping, it's just technically this is one line, so only one forward slash, or one set of forward slashes. Okay, we commented that out. That means there's no more story here. I still have the prompts, but there's not going to be a story because we commented it out. Okay, so easier way to write the story is we say let story equals, and then instead of using double quotes or single quotes, we use the backtick. Backtick is above the under the escape key, next to the number one, above the tab on your keyboard. So basically, we're gonna write the same thing, but instead of having all these pluses and then the variable, we're gonna do this. We're gonna say there once was a man named, and so no plus sign. Instead, we do a dollar sign, and then inside parentheses we just write name. Okay, and then we just continue like that. This is a little bit more readable and easy to write, right? So anytime we have a variable, like there once was a man named, and we gotta put the name, we just put dollar sign, curly brackets, and then the variable. Dollar sign, curly brackets, variable, lived in a cabin in the 100-acre woods. One day while going out to collect firewood, dollar sign, curly brackets, name, came across a dollar sign, curly brackets, animal. And you can see how this is a little bit easier to write, right? There once was a man named Bob. Bob was afraid of weasels. Bob lived in a cabin in 100-acre woods. One day while going out to collect firewood, Bob came across a weasel. The weasel was startled by Bob and ran away. Bob was relieved and went back to his cabin. The end. So this is called, I think it's called template literals or template strings. It was introduced along with let and const keyword when that was introduced. So it makes writing this type of string a little bit easier. So you don't have to do all those plus signs and then open and close the quotes. You just have a single pair of quotes or backticks. So it has to be this backtick. Can't use regular quotation mark or double or single quotes. You have to use this. Write your story. Just replace all the variables with this $sign and then curly brackets, the name of the variable. Cool. Any questions, by the way? You guys had some time during the break to try some of this. Any questions come up? Pause this. Why do we do this? Because well, you can't, obviously you can't just say name, because it'll just write, literally it'll just write there once was a man named name, right? So you have to have some way to show that this is a variable, not just part of the string. So the way they came up with is just putting a $sign and wrapping it with open and close curly bracket. So it gets read as a variable instead of part of the string. So then it looks at this, right? Name from there. And that's a lot easier to write than having to do this. Cool. So prompt is a built-in method or function. It's like the alert, except it has an input field. Whatever you input in there will be what it spits out. So it returns whatever you type in here. I just put some random string. Um, so that's a type of function that returns a value prompt. Whatever you type into the message is what it returns. If I do cancel, I didn't actually type anything. You see it gives us null. But yeah, take your time. I mean, don't be afraid to ask questions. We just want to make sure you guys get all of this before we continue talking about the rest. So we talk about strings. We also mentioned numbers in the notes. Um, how can we use numbers here? Actually, I don't think numbers would be something we could do here. Oh, we changed the 100 here instead of 100-acre woods. We could change this to an actual number. And I'm going to show you another built-in function that JavaScript has. We'll generate a random number, but here we'll replace the actual 100 with another one of these. Call it num1. Remember, we can't really use, some words are reserved. I don't know if number is reserved. Gotta look at that list of reserved words I mentioned. Abstract, boolean, blah blah blah. Is there a number in here? No. I get, you can't use the word int for integer. You could use a number. Anyways, we could use a number here, and then we'll have to say let number. I could do another prompt and ask you what is your favorite number, but I'm gonna do something else. Let's say number equals math dot floor math dot random times 1,000, let's say. So this will give me uh, a whole number. So math.floor basically rounds down. Math.random. Math.random gives you something between 0 and 1. And if you want that to be between 0 and 1,000, just multiply it by 1,000. Okay, so this is a function on its own, and this is another function. Basically, we're taking the result of this, right? Maybe it's like 97.634, and this is just gonna round it down to 97. So but it's gonna result in a random number between 0 and 1,000. So if we save that, what is your favorite animal? Let me refresh this actually. I think it already asked the name. What is your name? I don't know. Gunther. What is your favorite animal? Porcupine. Okay. There once was a man named Gunther. Gunther lived in a cabin in the 768-acre woods. So that's the random number it gave me. If I do it again, it'll give me a different random number. Now, the whole prompt thing is getting kind of annoying. So why don't we make this, instead of let name equals prompt, why don't we just say, um, let's give it a default name. Let name equals Bob or whatever. Bob. Let animal equal dog. And then this part, the whole prompting thing, we'll put it in a function. Function ask for name. Okay, so if we want to rename, we'll have to call this function called ask for name, and then we'll change the name to whatever we ask here. We'll do the same for the animal. Okay, so now it won't bug us with that. I don't want to each time I have to enter that. Save that. Why is it still asking me? It shouldn't ask us anymore because these are now functions which I'm not calling. Why is it still asking? Should not be asking. Oh, it's still here. I forgot to delete this. Thought I deleted it. Okay. There once was a man named Bob. Bob lived in a cabin in the 801-acre woods. If I refresh it, 642-acre woods, 483, 311, 833, 273. So it's always going to be a random number between 0 and 1,000. And if I want to change Bob and dog, I'll have to call one of these functions. Ask for name, ask for animal. The way you call a function is by typing the name of the function and then parentheses. So if I say ask for animal, parentheses, press enter. What is your favorite animal? Let's say moose. Now I changed the value of animal to moose, but it's still gonna say dog here because I'm changing it after I've already changed the inner HTML. So I already did document.innerText equals story2. So whatever the result of this story was before I changed the animal, that's what it's gonna say. So it's not gonna say moose here unless I redid this document.inner body.inner HTML. So what you could do is copy this and then instead of returning name, actually I did this wrong in the first place. I'm not supposed to return name. I mean, it doesn't matter. You could return it. It doesn't affect anything. Important thing is we're changing name to whatever the result of that is. Okay, this we don't really need to do at all unless we're gonna do something with that. But after we change the name, then we have to do this again. Document.body.innerText equals story2. I might even have to redeclare story2 actually. I think this might not even work. Let me try copy, paste there too. Okay, so ask for animal, parentheses, cow. Yeah, it's still not gonna change, even though I'm trying to set the body inner text again, and that's because um, I also have to redo this part. So basically, I would have to do this again. So ask for animal, hippo. Now it changes. So Bob came across a hippo. Let's change the name to ask for name. Leroy. Once was a man named Leroy. Okay, so bunch of stuff that a bunch of things here that tell you how JavaScript works here. So initially, if I refresh the page, it's gonna be Bob. Bob lived in random number in the woods, came across a dog. That's what it's always gonna say when you first load the page because name is Bob and animal is dog. These functions, we're not calling it, so they have no effect. Basically, these have not done anything. They won't do anything until you call the function. Okay, once you call the function, you have to reset what name is by using the prompt, and you have to also reset what the story is, and then you have to change the inner text of the body to this. So basically, the function, when I call for a new name or call for an animal, it has to redo the story and then redo this part. Because if you just change the value of animal and the value of name, that's gonna change it for um, this story. But then if you don't actually do inner text equals story2 again, the old story2 is gonna stay there. I don't know. Try it out, and then if you have any issues, let me know. Let me delete this one. We don't need story one. I'll delete story 2. I'll just write story. As a lot of this is repeated. When something is repeated like this, put it in another function. But I don't know. I think maybe we're moving a little too fast with the whole function thing. So let's just try out what I originally did without the number. And the number you could try math.random, but then this whole stuff, don't worry about this yet. Functions we still need to talk about. Slowly get into that. But you understand what a function is, right? It's a set of instructions, setting the animal to something, setting story to something, writing something into the body. Um, but we're not using it until we actually call it. So we could call it, reuse it anytime we want. Now I'm using it by typing it into the console, but you could also type it here. If you don't put the parentheses, it's not actually going to call it. So it has to include the parentheses. If I do it this way, I save it and refresh, immediately it's going to ask what my favorite animal is because I called it here. So if you don't want to call it immediately, then don't write that. Instead, you could type it in here, or you could call it when you click a button or something. You can actually make a button and then say on click equals ask for name. And the reason why we don't see the button is because we're replacing basically everything in the body with just the story. So you're not going to see a button here. So you'd have to put the button. Basically, you wouldn't be able to do this if you're doing body.innerText. Whatever this is going to replace everything else in the body. So if we want to keep the buttons, these buttons, so that we can click them and then call the function, instead of replacing the whole inner text of the body, we'll have to create another variable, like let's say create a div with the id equals story container, and then instead of doing this, you would have to say let story container equal document.getElementById story container, and then story container.innerText equals story. That way we could have our buttons and then have the story somewhere else. Okay, so if I click change name, what is your name? Gilbert. Now it says Gilbert. And since we're doing document.body.innerText here too in the functions, we never changed this to story.container, so it replaced all of those, including the buttons. We gotta replace that with story.innerContainer. Story container.innerText. Okay. name is Alex. Okay, now it's stayed. Change animal, panther. Why did panther work? I'll mess something up in this one. Oh, cause wait, why? Cause it says story too. It's supposed to be story. Change animal, panther. There we go. Actually, this isn't too much. I think you guys could understand this hopefully. Let me. I don't. I'm gonna copy paste this. Actually, instead of copy pasting, I think it's better if I give you the file. I'm gonna put this in the chat, okay? Because I don't want you guys to struggle to copy it or whatever. I just want you to have it so you could see what I did there and examine it and ask questions. Yeah, I'm recording. It'll be on Google Classroom. But you guys should ask questions now while I'm here.
I feel like I have to like rewatch everything and then because it's kind of like I'm a little bit confused for by everything.
That's
So
fine. No, I don't blame you. I am going
I
a
don't
little
have like
fast.
I don't have like actual questions right now. I feel like I have to like just revisit it and then probably I'll have questions on the doing, like
Okay.
on the making.
Well, your first assignment is just gonna be to write the story. Don't need to worry about too much else. Don't need all this. So let's focus on this. I apologize. I went a little too fast. I think I kind of wandered off into functions. I didn't mean to. But the variables and using template, so using the backtick to write a long string like this with variables in it. That part I want you guys to know. So I just want you to try this for your first assignment. Write your own story, write your own variables, and then if you want to write the story somewhere, um, so right now, if you want to actually see the result of this, you'd have to go into the console and then type in story. Story. That's weird saying can't access. Why is that? Can't access lexical declaration. Story before initializing. Why is it saying that? name, animal, story. Number is not. Where do I have number? Oh, I forgot I added number in here. Okay, let's change the number to 100. There we go. Okay, so not sure what the error was earlier, but it works now. Uh, so there's the result. I actually have to open my console and type the variable name for the story, which is story. You type the name of it, and then it writes what that is, gives you the result. So if story equals this, you want to see what this looks like with all of these actually interpreted as strings. You can just write the name, it'll show you. Or just do the document dot body dot inner HTML equals story, and then it'll just write the story here. Okay, so just to review, a variable is a word that you can use to reference something else, like a string or a true or false or a number or an object. Right, we haven't talked about the objects and stuff yet. Right now we're just looking at strings, which is just text surrounded by quotes. So we're saying let name equal Bob, let animal equal dog, and these variables now we can use them in our story. I'll keep the let story one, rewrite. This is something you can't do. I'm doing it because I have Copilot, but I don't feel like rewriting all of this with the plus sign again, so I'm just gonna tell Copilot to do it for me. I'm gonna say rewrite story using concatenation. No, I don't want it to do story 1, 2, 3. Discard. There we go. Accept that one. I'll call that one story 1. So that's the hard way to do it. The original way, using the plus sign. This is called template literals. I'll put a little comment here. Using template literals introduced in ES6 using string concatenation. Variables. Store the name and animal. give you that in the chat. I forget what I shared earlier with the functions. That's a little too far for the first hour of learning JavaScript, so, or first 2.5, 3 hours. Um, just stick to this for the first assignment. Okay. So variables store the name. You can use string concatenation. So if you have two strings, use a plus sign with them. Use a basic one. Let's do like let um, uh, is that, I guess I'll do first name, last name. Let first name equal John, last name equal Doe. Let full name equal first name plus a space plus last name. This kind of lets you understand what basic concatenation is. Put that up there. Okay, so just so you know how the plus works, you have a variable, you have first and last name, John Doe. You want a full name variable, because if I type first name, it's just gonna say John. Last name is just Doe. Full name would be first name plus a space plus last name, because you want John Doe separated with a space, so you gotta add this empty string. But yeah, that's what we're doing in here. But with string concatenation, same thing, using template literals. You could just do let full name 2 equals $ first name, $ last name. Just that space there replaces that one. Right, so yeah, that's all you need to know right now. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. It's already 9:30, so we could probably end the lesson there. The rest of class, we got like 15 minutes. You guys can ask questions. I don't know if I should record your questions. I'll just pause this.